Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Corner Office here. We're checking in after game one. Great time to be a Celtics fan, but I do want to make this clear for anybody who is watching with us at home. This episode is to talk more so about what happened in game one, because I have no intention of making any predictions for the rest of this series and jinxing the Celtics. So that's not coming today. We do not want to talk about any of the future games, just the game that we witnessed last night, what we liked, what we didn't like, and some more of the basketball news that's been bouncing around the landscape these past couple of days as we wind down to the dog days of summer.
And so the Celtics have taken a 1-0 lead in the NBA Finals and seemingly answered all the questions we had about them going into game one, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Will Kristaps Porzingis be healthy? Ends up not starting, comes in, has 18 points in the first half, answers that question.
Yep.
Was 9 days too much rest for the Celtics? Came out, had 37 points in the first quarter, seemingly not that big of a problem.
Right.
And then can Joe Mazzulla coach on the big level? Mavericks come back all the way, cut the lead all the way down from 29 to 8. Joe Mazzulla calls a timeout. Out of the timeout, we go on an 8-0 run. Seemingly answered the question again. I was very impressed with the game one win.
I agree. I think we executed our plan pretty solidly. First quarter in general, I think you can point to and say that's probably the best shooting quarter we've had this playoffs thus far. I think we had what, 37 points?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think we had 42 in a game against Miami in the first quarter.
Okay. But from the 3-point line last night, it really felt like the Celtics were making a lot of big shots. There were some stretches where we were getting another thing, just to throw it out there before we get too far into the 3-point battle stuff. We did a lot better on the glass than I was anticipating us doing, especially in the first half when we were building a lead. But I think that led to the fact that, we had a lot of open looks, and some of those times, we squandered some opportunities where we had multiple open shots in a possession and we just didn't convert on those. But, it was good to see Sam Hauser see some go down because he really struggled in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it was good to see, Kristaps come back. And I think he's really the biggest story here. Just the way that he played in that game and, the pressure that he took off of, a guy like Jason Tatum, who probably didn't have the best game he's going to have this series, or a guy like Jaylen Brown, who did really step up and answer the call.
And Doris said it last night on the broadcast, and shockingly enough, I could not agree more. Okay. Tatum didn't score the ball that much, but his shooting splits weren't ridiculous, especially towards the end of the game. And it was really kind of a sit back, let the rest of the guys take it, and then, as the series goes on, start to step up more ideally. And I told you last night, I was talking about it, he's going to get ripped in the national media for no reason today. Same kind of story. We've talked about it before. I'm not going to beat a dead horse on the show, but I thought that his hustle minutes were great. I thought Jaylen Brown played a great game last night.
I agree.
3 great blocks. Pickpocketed Luka twice. Had 2 fast break dunks and was hitting deep threes.
Yep.
Finished with 22, but it was the loudest 22. Same with Kristaps. He had, I think, 22 as well. He had 20 points, but 18 of them were in the first half.
He was also 8 for 13 from the field, shot incredibly well.
A number that jumps out to me, just looking at the box score, if you had missed the game, I think it would jump out to you as well, is that Luka Doncic only had 1 assist last night.
Agreed.
And the Dallas Mavericks as a team only had 9 assists last night, which is only one more than Tatum and Horford had themselves.
Yep.
So that to me screams that we are playing great help side defense.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of gave Luka a lot and relied on him to have other guys make shots, and they just didn't. And it's going to be hard to in a crowd like TD Garden.
Yep.
And that showed in game one. And a team only having 9 assists in a 48-minute basketball game is just a testament to how well they've played defensively all playoffs. They carried it into this game. I thought their offense, great in the first quarter, fairly stagnant throughout the rest of the game, besides maybe that 4 to 5 minute stretch at the end of the third quarter.
I wouldn't disagree.
And they ended with a very average offensive stat line.
Yep.
But their defense was championship level defense, and that is what has them up 1-0 in the NBA Finals.
I Could not agree more with that take. I mean, again, Celtics shoot 38% from three. That's pretty good stats. But we had 9 blocks as a team. So we had as many blocks.
Oh, that Kristaps transition block was nice, wasn't it?
Right. We had as many blocks as a team as the Dallas Mavericks had assists the entire game, which is an absurd stat to think about. And I really do think that our defensive intensity in the second half is what kept us in it. When we went to that, classic Celtics third quarter, we just stopped moving the ball, stopped moving on offense. The biggest takeaway for me for this entire series going forward is just the fact that the Mavericks have been able to hide Luka Doncic on the defensive end in every series that they have played thus far, whether that's matching him up with somebody who isn't nearly as much of an offensive threat, such as like a Jaden McDaniels or someone else on the Minnesota Timberwolves last series. The Celtics starting 5 is too deep in order to do that. When we move the ball around, they can't catch up to the way that we can, the way that we have 5 scores every time on the court if you have KP instead of Al. And even when you have Al, he's someone who can hit a deep ball, so it's still a threat to have him out on the court. I think.
Well, and the first play of the game last night, Luka Doncic gets shifted over to Al. Al gets him in the air off a pump fake, and then he rips by him for an easy 2. We used the whole shot clock, ended with a dunk. It was almost the perfect possession to start the game last night.
You need Luka Doncic, if you are the Mavericks, to be having a great offensive output night in and night out in order for them to win the series, because on defense, he has been a liability all throughout the playoffs, and he is going to struggle against the way that the Boston Celtics play offense if we move the ball. Now, obviously, there are shots and stuff like that like I don't particularly like that the Celtics have a tendency to do, right? Like especially at the end of quarters when we know that Jason Tatum is going to shoot a sidestep 3 that's just going to hit nothing but air.
Falling last night.
Yeah, on occasion. I mean, he didn't shoot great. I also think that people are overreacting to Kyrie Irving's performance. He'll be back, and I think he'll be a lot better in game 2.
I agree.
But I think that also goes to show you that this Mavericks team cannot win if both of their stars do not play well, which is a big deal.
I think the magic number for the Dallas Mavericks is 110. If we can hold them to under 110 points, we are going to win every game. I don't think that they'll be able. Last series it was 120 with the Pacers.
Yep.
And the only game that they got there was overtime, so technically it's not the same.
True.
And then I think that this series the number is 110. If they get more than 110, they have a great chance to beat us. If they score less than 110, I don't see them beating us. And last night they scored 89. But, I mean, it was really like 75 from the starters, and that's kind of a little gracious itself. Something that needs to be highlighted needs to be continued moving forward is the lob game. They were able to take advantage of Minnesota and Oklahoma City by using their bigs for the lob game.
Agreed.
Last night they didn't have 1. They had 0, which means that was something that we worked on in the game plan and executed flawlessly, and it has to be done the same way in game 2.
Agreed. I thought it was
back
interesting
to your point.
Go.
I'm sorry. No, finish it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I thought it was an interesting matchup to have Gafford or Tatum on Gafford to start the game, and actually throughout the entire game. But the way that he played against Miles Turner in the Pacers series, I think that lends itself to the fact that he will be fine in those types of situations, especially with the fact that Gafford is much less of a creator than Miles Turner is.
Correct. Derek Lively had no points last night.
Yeah.
He may have had 2 points. He had 2 points on 1 dunk, but did have 5 fouls, and it was very easy to get him into foul trouble.
Agreed.
That's something that needs to stay. I thought that we went on our run last night when Derek Lively started picking up fouls. He had 3 and 4 minutes. Right when Daniel Gafford got on the bench after having played the whole third quarter up to that point, and it was a huge momentum shift for us. That has to continue. Back to your point about Luka Doncic having gotten away defensively throughout the playoffs.
Okay.
I would argue that the entire Mavericks team has gotten off defensively throughout the entire playoffs. And you could say the same about the Celtics, but they've proven that they don't have to go against the best competition to be playing the best basketball.
True.
The Dallas Mavericks play a great series against LA. I have nothing to say about that. Yeah. They go against Oklahoma City Thunder, and Jalen and Chet effectively shut down. All they have to worry about is Shea. That's one guy that you have to worry about offensively.
Yep.
You go against the Minnesota Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards has every eye on him and can't produce 30 points in the Western Conference Finals. Karl Anthony Towns has the worst series of all time. And upon that, Rudy Gobert ended up taking 8 shots in the first half of Game 5. So they got away with that series as well by not facing a best Minnesota Timberwolves lineup. So now that's another one guy that you have to worry about. Now you're playing a team that has 5 guys on the court at all times that you have to worry about scoring on every single level. And that is the main thing that they ended up struggling with last night.
Okay. I agree with that. I think that defensively their rotations were slow and poor. I also think that they have good rim protectors. Like obviously Lively and Gafford are both good rim protectors.
Really? Because Gafford got gone last night.
Yeah, he gets posterized a lot, but that's because he is contesting 4 blocks. He's consistently around 2 blocks a game.
He is. He's one of the best blockers in the league.
He's definitely a very solid rim protector, I would say. But they're not great outside perimeter defenders, and you see that the way that they were switching. Like we had Kristaps Porzingis being matched up with Jaden Hardy in multiple possessions. That can't happen if you're the Mavericks. It's going to lead to a basket. You know what I mean? Like
I thought Josh Green played better than Josh Hardy did against Porzingis. Derek Lively in the second half was hounding him. Every time the ball crossed half court, Derek Lively was literally like pile driving him as far away from the high post as possible. I don't know if you noticed that. It could be foul every possession, and they got him twice for it. And so he was literally hounding Porzingis, and that was the thing that seemed to work. So keep an eye out for that in Game 2.
I agree. I also think that they started Jaylen Brown on Luka Doncic. I don't know if that's going to continue that way. They may go to Derek White later in the series, but that being said, if that's the defensive matchup that's going to be effective, keep going. Keep at it. I think that we played very well defensively last night and need to continue that. And I mean, we had multiple steals and turnovers where people were just dribbling with the ball behind their back, not expecting a double to come. And that's how Jaylen Brown got two of his
Derek White picked his pocket once as well.
Correct. So if we can continue to put him in those positions where he has to take those mid-range shots, because we can leave a guy like a Derek Lively on the perimeter, probably wouldn't be there, or like a Derek Jones Jr., who's not a great shooter, or a PJ Washington, who has not shot great thus far. We don't want him to get hot or anything, but like I think that there is more, there is more that we can do defensively if we have to focus on Luka and Kyrie specifically. Now, that being said, there were some possessions where the Celtics messed up switches and they didn't pay for it last night. There were a lot of times where there were wide open threes for the Mavericks that I saw. PJ Washington had a few. Kyrie had a few. Going forward, that can't happen if you're Joe Mazzulla.
Correct.
But I do think that the Celtics executed their defensive game plan pretty flawlessly last night, and you can see that by the fact that this is a team that has scored so many points game in and game out, being the Mavericks, including against top defenses like the Minnesota Timberwolves in the last series, and they were held to 89 points.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you make. Mavericks only shot 64% from the line, which is also something that they get, that we got away with, but we didn't shoot much better. We were hovering right around 70%, 68.5%.
Yeah, not great.
Not great either. Luka Doncic, I think that people are going to look at his 30 and 10 and be like, oh, first finals game, like what a debut, one of the best debuts of all time. Fine. Yeah. That's a national narrative.
Agreed.
But at the same time, he's shooting 46%, which is actually really high compared to normal for him. He normally gets his 30 on maybe like a 38, 42% shooting.
Okay.
And
he shot poorly from 3, though. He was 25% from 3, which is not normal. And there were some looks.
He was like 35% from 3, which is pretty normal. Okay. The team shot 25% from 3, and that's not normal.
Yeah.
Which goes back to your point that you've made before. But if they're going to win this series, Luka can't just get 30 and 10. He has to get 30, 10, and like 8 or 9.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to be much more of a creator for their offense in order for, he can't just be a scorer in order for them to win games. And I think you saw that a lot of their offensive stagnation was the fact that they were not hitting open shots, and then that he wasn't nearly as much of a effective creator as he has been in series past.
Correct. And if your best player is taking 26 shots and only making 46% of them,
yeah,
with 1 assist. Like, if this was anyone else who shot, not necessarily great from the field, and is supposed to have it. Like, if Nikola Jokic goes out and has 1 assist, or LeBron goes out and has 1 assist but takes 26 shots, they get destroyed in the media the next day.
Yeah.
But yet, it's his finals debut.
Did he have?
4.
Okay.
He had a 4-to-1 turnover to assist ratio.
Yeah, not great.
It's not great. And so most people would be getting trashed in the media. But for some reason, he's getting away with it. But people are going to still dog on Tatum, who ended up...
Tatum did
he
have
didn't shoot a
7
great
turnovers.
Split. Oh, shit, he really did. He had 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to take that take back. That's a bad take. But regardless, my point still stands. Luka Doncic didn't play a great game last night in terms of efficiency, but he is still taking all these shots away from other people who potentially could have been more reliable in certain situations.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that the Celtics did a very good job of limiting the other options on offense and letting Luka Doncic do what he normally does, because I think they anticipate that he's going to get 25 to 30 a night, depending. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
It doesn't. Yeah, it really doesn't, to be honest.
But if you can hold Derrick Jones Jr. to 2 for 9 from 3, or 2 for 9 shooting, period, and a guy like PJ Washington to similar splits, keep those guys.
If you can hold Kyrie, who's supposed to be the second superstar, to 6 from 19, it doesn't matter. And all 6 of his buckets, like he had maybe one easy bucket. He had like a little left to right, right to left on Al Horford on the baseline. And had a wide open layup. Besides that, he had to work really hard for the other 5 buckets.
I agree.
That's fine.
I agree. And I also think that the way that we switched yesterday was good. Aside from the miscommunications where that led to open threes, we had multiple switches where Al Horford was switched onto Luka Doncic, and I think he did very well.
He had a block.
He blocked a shot. He contested. I didn't see him make one over him, and I'm not saying that's going to continue. Obviously, that's not a matchup that I want to see. But I think defensively, as a whole, you saw this Celtics team perform pretty damn well.
I would agree. And I think that's the takeaway from game 1. Celtics play good defense. Mavericks play mediocre offense. Celtics take game 1. Yep. And then we move on because we're not making any predictions on the show.
No predictions.
Not anymore.
Not for this.
I'm just gonna say I'm excited. This is the only thing I'm excited to see. What changes the coaches make?
Yeah. What adjustments come in game 2?
What adjustments? Yeah, I'm interested about that. But that's the only prediction that I'm predicting that there will be adjustments made.
Okay.
And I'm excited to see what they are.
Okay. All right. I hear you. I'm right there with you.
Let's talk about the headline that came out on the same day as game 1 of the finals, and that is the vacant LA Lakers head coaching job seems to be reserved for Dan Hurley until he makes a comment. Dan Hurley being the head coach of the UConn men's basketball team, until he makes a decision as to whether or not he wants to be in that system. Now, he's talked about working in the NBA being his final goal, throughout his career. And now he's at a crossroads where he can either take the job, if it's true, which is what he's being offered. It's definitely true. It's coming from Woj, but he can either take the NBA job with one of the most storied franchises in NBA history,
correct,
who are in a very bad place, or keep his job at one of the most storied NCAA franchises who are in potentially the best place in the country and looking to do something that hasn't been done since John Wooden's UCLA teams, which is win 3 national championships in a row. Yeah. So, Alex, how do you see this playing out?
So it's an incredibly interesting situation for multiple reasons. The first is if he decides to take the job. That means that the transfer portal is going to open up. He has multiple 5-stars on his roster who will leave UConn. UConn will not be a powerhouse next year. They are going to lose a lot of their transfer students who came in, and that's going to shake up the college basketball landscape even more than it already has been. This could bolster programs like Kentucky, like Arkansas, some of these teams that have seen really good recruiting success in this offseason. So that would be a really big, adjustment. And then the second question is who's going to take over that UConn position? Would it be someone who's, has had coaching experience, some of the guys that we talked about, because I mean, obviously this is a blue blood job that people want at the moment, or are they going to go with someone in-house or something like that? I think more so it's interesting for the NBA because I don't think the Los Angeles Lakers bring in Dan Hurley in order to keep LeBron James.
Well, I just don't think that they can do that, period.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they can keep Anthony Davis if he's going to be in there either.
I agree. I think that if you're going to bring Dan Hurley to the LA Lakers, you're going to rebuild mode. Because I do not think that Dan Hurley's coaching style, one of, practices are harder than games and, we work for the team. This is it's a team goal. We all eat if we do well, all these types of things. I don't think it works with NBA players. Now, that being said, if you put him in a rebuilding scenario and you show them some team success and you get young pieces and players that he maybe has coached prior to this, maybe it can work. But the repertoire of college coaches coming to the NBA and being successful, Jack and I kind of workshopped this last night when I texted him about this whole entire situation, is the most successful one is Billy Donovan. And the only real accolade that Billy Donovan has to his name is going to an NBA Finals and then being a middling coach for the rest of his career, basically, with the OKC Thunder and then...
And now being unemployed.
So, he's the most successful person who's made the jump. You've seen multiple people make the jump, like John Calipari, like Rick Pitino, I don't know. There are multiple guys who have made the jump from college to the NBA. Even if you switch sports and you go to the NFL, a guy like Urban Meyer, you know what I mean? They have a coaching style where there is a large ego. There is a large ego attached to being a college basketball head coach, and I think Dan Hurley has that, and that has led to him being successful because he's had full control over his players. Now, going to the NBA, these are grown men who know the game of basketball as good, if not better, than you do, especially at that level. And I don't see it working with a veteran core. Now, could he be successful with a younger team? Maybe, possibly, but this is the Los Angeles Lakers, and they're not going to want to wait around for 2 to 3 years for them to be bad.
Absolute minimum. I mean, I don't remember the GM's name. I heard it 40 times yesterday.
Rob Pelinka?
Yeah, Pelinka. Thank you. They are looking to bring in Dan Hurley with the idea that he's bringing this culture and winning way with him.
Yeah.
But what they're forgetting is that UConn was horrible for 3 seasons. Mediocre. They were a 500 team for 3 seasons before they started to win.
Agreed.
And LA is not one of those teams that is able to go through a rebuild like we saw the Thunder go through, or like we're seeing the Spurs go through. They're just too big of a market. That's the way that small market teams turn into, championship contenders. But big market teams don't do that because they have enough money to not have to do that. And the Lakers' mantra throughout their existence has been, we're going to throw cash at whoever's out there and pray that they're good enough to, come in and compliment our star in order to get a championship. And it's worked 17 times.
Right.
However, that's not what you're going to do with Dan Hurley. I think, honestly, I don't really think that the Lakers job is more attractive than the UConn job right now. It's been an absolute revolving door since Phil Jackson left in 2010. I just don't think it's a great job with a ton of security. You could be fired at literally any moment.
Yeah, so they had Darvin Ham from 2022 to 24, Frank Vogel from 2019 to 22, Luke Walton from all these guys, Luke Walton, Byron Scott, Mike D'Antoni, Bernie Bickerstaff, Mike Brown, the last
all of these guys are great coaches who have thrived in systems other than the LA Lakers.
Agreed.
Mike D'Antoni was great with the Suns and Rockets, both smaller market teams. Byron Scott has been great throughout his entire coaching and playing career. Mike Brown is doing fantastic things in Sacramento, did great things in Cleveland. LA is not a place to recreate a culture such as those guys have done wherever they've gone. I think that if he was to transition to the NBA, a smaller market team would be better for him because he would be able to have more control over his team than he does in LA.
I agree with that. It's the revolving door is so true because the last coach to coach more than 3 years for the LA Lakers in the past 10 seasons has been Phil Jackson from 2005 to 2011. Like it's it's a position where there is absolutely so much pressure put on it because you want to be successful and you need to be successful. And even coaches who have been mildly successful, a Frank Vogel, right? A guy who won you a championship could be gone the next season just because of how poorly they have been up and down and up and down. I don't think Dan Hurley's going to take this job. I think that he knows that his position is probably best to stay in college for right now, especially with the team that he has at the moment. So my prediction would be that he doesn't take the Lakers job, despite how alluring it is. I think we saw the same kind of scenario play out with Mike Krzyzewski almost 20-something years ago when he was offered the same position and decided to decline to stay at Duke University and became the most winningest coach in NCAA history. But like, I struggle to see Dan Hurley making the jump to the NBA successfully, especially if they plan to keep all of these star power players that they have on their roster right now and not go into a rebuild. Because I don't think there's a track record of success with college coaches getting a fully bolstered roster and then doing well. I just don't think it's happened before.
So if you're Dan Hurley, I first of all, I absolutely agree with you. If you're Dan Hurley right now, you're in UConn. You just signed a $36 million extension over 6 years. You've got everything going for you. Great recruiting class, chance to run it back for a third time in a row.
Yep.
And then this LA Lakers job, I mean, I just don't think it's all that fashionable. I don't think that it's necessarily a giant step up from UConn right now, where you're creating basketball greatness.
Yeah.
And I think that, honestly, he would kind of be a fool to leave UConn at this moment to go be for the Lakers. Now, if we get 4 years down the road, UConn's kind of floundering.
This job is going to open up. This job is going to open up in 3 years. Like it doesn't
like
matter,
if we get further down the road and have the same conversation, and UConn's not in as good of a place, then I would see him taking it. Yes, but due to the circumstances that they're under right now as a school, I don't see him leaving to take it. He's still young enough where he will be able to coach a couple more years and then still have a long life in the NBA.
Agreed. It should be noted, though, that Brad Stevens also successfully made the jump, but him and Dan Hurley's coaching styles are completely different, so I kind of forgot to mention him when it came to this whole conversation. But I agree with you. I don't think that he will make the move. I think he does have some love for UConn, and I do think that, he's smart enough to realize that this job is not desirable at the moment, despite the fact that he may, the allure of the NBA is that you're coaching the best basketball players to walk the earth. But I think for the next few seasons, you will see Dan Hurley supporting the Huskies as they try and make, history next year.
So let's talk about some guys who are potentially candidates for the job.
Okay.
JJ Redick has been, I mean, it's rumored.
I don't
love that either, for either side, to be honest with you. I love JJ Redick. I think that he's an incredibly entertaining person. We've taken tips from his show for our show, but I just don't think that it would be a great fit right now to be in LA. As a Laker, being a former Clipper, don't really see it shaking out like that. A name that I'm going to throw out there, JB Bickerstaff, just got fired in Cleveland. I think that would be a actually very good hire for the Lakers. I think he's been a great coach.
He's been fine.
And Alex, I was going to ask you this pre-recording. I thought I'd save it. Is there a future where Mike Budenholzer has a job in the NBA? Because you'd think that he would be, his name would at least be in the hat for this position, being an NBA champion in the last 3 years. But it seems to not be. So is there a future where he has a job in the NBA?
Well, is he not the Suns' top coaching target right now? I think he just signed with the Suns.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. I think he just signed with the Suns. So you're going to see him back in the NBA.
Oh, yeah, he did sign with the Suns.
because they just got rid of Vogel.
Okay.
So
So the Suns are in a very similar position to those Lakers.
I agree.
Been a revolving door. No one's been able to stay. Not really that fashionable of a job. That would explain why his name hasn't been in conversations. It's on me, guys. But I don't see him lasting there for longer than 3 years, maybe maximum.
He took on the hardest coaching job in basketball by going to the Suns, which is you have to navigate whether or not you give the roster that you have another shot, or if you go into full rebuild mode because you don't have picks until 2029, which is an absurd.
Billy Donovan is another name that hasn't been considered for this Lakers job, and is not the coach of the Bulls
Has
anymore.
he been fired yet?
I think that they parted ways.
Okay. Because I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen a ton about the Bulls, just in general. It wouldn't surprise me because he's been unsuccessful there for the past couple of seasons. Another team that's kind of in that limbo stage where like they're a play-in team, but they've never really made a jump to be a competitor in the NBA playoffs. And I think that their experiment with Zach LaVine being a star and DeMar DeRozan being that like second piece didn't really work out for them. But I don't know. Is they parted ways?
He's still the coach.
He is still the coach. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I mean, another reason why you haven't heard his name flying around. It makes no sense to me why he's still the coach. He should be on the hot seat, but I just don't think there's a wealth of coaching candidates out there that people want to hire right now.
It's going to be another guy that comes in, spends 2 years there, and gets flushed out unless they land Dan Hurley, in which case he's going to be signed on a 6 to 8 year contract.
I think Sam Cassell is floating around for
Sam Cassell is floating around. Sam Cassell is floating around everywhere, and I would hate to lose Sam Cassell.
That would suck. Yeah, that would suck.
But yes, his name is floating around.
Yeah.
Well, until we figure out how that gets answered, we will continue to cover this moving forward. We'll be back most likely after Game 2 to talk about everything you need to know about Game 2. But until then, this has been the Corner Office, and I'm Jack Burnt.
And I'm Alex Penders. Corner 3.
Corner 3.